Hi, good evening, and welcome to Victoria Literacy Center's Schooling at Home program, Q&A. And of course, as you guys know who've been following us, our Q&A session is really meant to be that platform where parents can come in and have their questions answered regarding challenges that they may be having at home, supporting schooling at home. And especially we know with COVID-19 and with us sort of pulling back and having to stay at home and be away from school, this is a great time that we're able to offer this free online live stream where parents can have the option to touch base, chat with us, ask their questions so that you can receive support at home. Today, however, I should say tonight, because it is nighttime, we are excited to bring you a special programming segment. And that programming segment, it's centered around CXC support, 2020 CXC support for students who are sitting exams in 2020. Now, as we all know, COVID-19 has significantly affected our ability to be able to function with our studies, facilitate schooling through traditional settings. And for most of the Caribbean, schools have been closed and were closed for the majority of term 2 into term 3, for those of us who class it that way. So today, what we want to be able to do is to share with you guys some information that says, hey, these are the adjustments that CXC has made, and based on those adjustments, we're really excited to have two teachers in studio with us tonight, sharing some great tips with both teens and parents to really help us all to understand how we could really maximize on this time and be able to do effective exam preparations. But for those of us who may not be fully up to date with what's been going on, allow me to share some information. Now, the Caribbean Examination Council has released a series of statements, and basically what they're letting us know is that they are recognizing the impact of COVID-19 on the education systems, both within the Caribbean and internationally. And as a result of the impact of COVID-19 on our education systems, the Council has made some policy decisions to offer modified examination processes. And what does that mean? Offering modified examination processes simply means that the formats exams would have taken in the years prior, they're going to do some things differently this year, 2020. And so I just want to take a minute to share some of those updates with you. And first and foremost, what CXC has allowed us to know is that there's going to be the administration of at least one common paper. And when they talk about that common paper, they're talking about the administration of multiple choice assessments. In conjunction with this, CXC has also let us know that they're going to also be pulling in results and grading from the school-based assessments, otherwise known as SBAs. And of course, for those private candidates, they're going to be pulling from the paper 3s, which would be the alternative to the SBAs. And of course, awards of final grades are going to be based on the moderated SBAs and the multiple choice papers. Why is this important? This update is important because now we're understanding that unlike before, where there would have been your structured paper through the paper 2, your multiple choice, as well as the SBA or paper 3, now the structured paper has been removed as one of the options for examination. And this means we want to pay attention, because when we deal with exam preparations, we are wanting to deal with being able to take a strategic approach to how we prepare, how we learn, and how we position ourselves to respond within exam settings. So joining in this evening, we have two tutors that are with us. We have Miss Jones and we have Miss Lewis. So we have two Miss Lewis in the room tonight, right? So I'll call her Miss Nalini for tonight. So we have Miss Carice and we have Miss Nalini. So let me bring in Miss Carice, so as I like to say, Miss Jones. Hi, Miss Jones. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Awesome. So, Miss Jones, of course, a lot of people are absolutely freaking out because we have spent all of our years preparing for a paper 2, a paper 1, and an SBA. And for most students, the majority of the emphasis would have been on preparing for that paper 2.
True.
because that is the big deal. Now that paper two is not here for 2020, and the emphasis is on the paper one as it pertains to study tips specifically for multiple choice, what recommendations or advice would you give, let's say, to biology, chemistry, or physics students preparing for this paper one? How do they adjust their study time? What recommendations can you give?
Okay, so hi, good night, everyone. I strongly believe that in preparing for the paper one, you should prepare for it just as though you would have for the paper two, especially in the subjects of biochemistry and maths. And this is because they will still try to tackle questions to cover the entire syllabus. So it'd be exactly the same thing that you have to prepare for. So the only difference between a paper one and paper two is whereas you would have had to be more concerned with how you answer the question. In this case, here with a paper one, the answer will be in front of you. Therefore, if you prepare the information the same way that you would have prepared for just like a normal CSEC exam with the paper one, paper two, paper three, where necessary, you will do the same thing for paper one. I don't think that you should necessarily try to change the way that you were preparing for the exam, because the paper one will encompass every aspect of the syllabus, whereas especially in the sciences, in the paper two, we know for sure a question one will be a lab-based question, a calculation, and then the section two will be more of essay types, and they would just give you like broad categories. In the case of a paper one, they could fine tune it and zero in on topics. So my advice to students at this point in time in preparing for these paper one exams is just prepare the topics, study the topics just as though you're writing a paper two. It will make the exam a lot easier in the sense that as soon as you read the question, you'll be able to tell immediately what is not the right answer. And then by deductive reasoning, be able to tell which one is the right answer. But if you prepare for the exam in a normal way, you may even read the question and immediately be able to tell if that answer was right. Right. So I
Okay, got
don't think
it.
you should really adjust too much. Study just like if you had a paper two, because I think people tend to think because it's paper one that it may be easier because you have the answers there. That is not necessarily the case, because sometimes the answers can be so close. But if you cover the topics in detail, like if you're preparing for paper two, I'm sure that you wouldn't have that slip up.
Right. And of course, we want to say thank you, Miss Jones. We want to take a minute and switch over to Miss Nalini for a minute. And Miss Nalini, hi, good night. Welcome to our Schooling at Home segment. Now, as it pertains to the math, are there any study tips you would give with regards to how students should now prepare in their study time for this math multiple choice exam?
Okay, well, basically, the math multiple choice, I would recommend practice, right? Because what CXC does is that they have a pool of questions that they would pull questions from. The reason for this is because you don't have access to lots of paper ones, because CXC restricts the schools from like sending it out to other people. So they would use these questions. So once you practice, you keep practicing, then you will come across questions in the exams that are familiar to you. So the most important thing with the maths is practice.
Okay, so what you're sharing with us then, Ms. Nalini, is that even as we get into the math prep, because you're saying to us that exams are repeated, a really strategic way it can be handled is practice, because you just might meet that question all over again. Got
Yes.
it. Just adding Miss Jones to the conversation. Miss Jones, you said something really interesting a moment ago. You said prepare the same way for the paper two as you would have the paper one. And the thought that popped into my head is that, of course, there's an underlying assumption there. that there was preparation taking place.
Wow.
So, so if it is, we were to encourage a student or a parent that, let's say, maybe wasn't preparing the way you think preparation should be done. Can you and Miss Nalini share just some tips on, at this stage, what does it really mean to prepare? When you're talking about study time, could you break that down? Because, okay, for instance, some students may think studying mean I take up the textbook and I read it, so I study. Or Miss Nalini, some students might think practicing means, okay, I did 3 questions on a topic, I'm good now. So could you all share, Miss Jones, with special emphasis on the sciences, and Miss Nalini with special emphasis on the math, can you all share with our viewing audience, when you think about studying and studying for multiple choice, what really is it that you're talking about? What is that routine that the student should be having? What are those things that the student should be doing, whether on a daily or weekly basis, that encompasses studying?
Okay, Miss
The floor
Nalini,
is
would you like to
yours.
go first? Go ahead.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Mhm.
I will go first, right? With regards to maths, right? Well, we're just maybe like a month away from exams, right? So what I would advise students to do is to start getting organized. So what you need to do is to check where and when your exams will take place, and you need to write down these on a wall chart or a calendar, right? Additionally, I know a lot of students, they are pretty stressed with the being at home all the time, and you know you have a lot of time and you're just studying. But what I would advise is that you get back to your regular eating and sleeping routine, right? You don't do anything new, which will like encourage you to be more stressed, right? And then what I would also encourage is that you need to time yourself when you're doing your questions. So with the maths multiple choice, there are 60 questions and you only have an hour and a half, right? Which means that you have a 1.5 minute to do each question. What I would advise is that when they are practicing their questions, they try to use 1 minute per question. But some questions may take less than a minute, which is fine, and some questions may take more, right? So what I would advise is that they time themselves and they give themselves enough time to check over their work when they're finished, right? So they need to manage their time properly, right? Another tip that I would give them is after they're completed and they've checked over the work, they need to re-review their answers thoroughly. So if it is that they checked over the work and something was wrong, then they need to go back into the textbook or ask someone, a teacher, who can help them understand where they went wrong, right? So I would say those are the things that would help them.
Okay. Well, for me, for the sciences, biochemistry and physics, my advice to you is on a daily basis, you're at the level of CXC, designating 20 minutes, and I mean like 20 minutes on like studying something. So let's just say I study personally by repetition. So if I spend 15, 20 minutes repeating and repeating the information every time I get the chance until I understand it, then I'll take a 10-minute break. So, and that really works for your benefit, because even if you're not tired after the 20 minutes of studying, you may think, okay, well, I could push it for the hour. No, your brain works better with small breaks in between, and you don't want to take too long of a break where you end up now feeling lazy to start back. So my advice to you will be to study for 20 minutes on, take 10-minute breaks. When your 10-minute break, take a walk, don't even look at the information, don't think about it, try to, you could watch a short series on TV, go talk to somebody, have something to eat, stay hydrated. So study for 20 minutes on, 10 minutes break. And you do that until you finish whatever topic that you want to cover. The good thing about multiple choices in the sciences, and mostly in biology, is that a lot of the information will be based on definitions, things that you could possibly say, well, what is a food chain? Who will be at the start of a food chain? Things like that. So make sure that in studying for something like biology, that you know your basic terminology, your basic definitions of things. Everything else you can have like a general understanding of. And some things you must know the definition of. So my advice to you is, if you're learning, and if you're somebody who learns by repetition, or even if it's just like practicing a question, just make sure that you time yourself and you know, for 20 minutes, all I will be doing is focusing on this topic in this subject, and 10 minutes break. Even if you don't complete exactly what you wanted to complete in that 20 minutes, do not feel defeated. Don't think it's over. You have an entire day ahead of you. You can do the same thing for the entire day, 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off. If you say you want to study for 20 minutes on and take a 15-minute break, that is fine as well. But it will help to increase your productivity. In a subject such as chemistry and physics, where most of the information in multiple choice will be application, my advice to you in those subjects: one, know your formulae, know your conversions, because those are things that they will throw at you in a multiple choice, because you're supposed to know your conversions. So make sure that you learn your conversions, you know what moles are, you know the formulae, and you can practice questions then on how to apply those things. And in those subject areas, it's not so much of a repetition. You will not have much things to do in definition wise, but your general understanding of it is important. So in the next few weeks, what I tend to advise my students to do is, one, you still have the entire CXC syllabus to cover, and don't feel defeated. It's possible to get it done just by taking that 20 minutes on, 10 minutes break. And I don't mean like just study for 20 minutes an entire day. I mean, like for the entire 24 hours, between 8 to 6 or 8 to 4, however you want to do it. If you get yourself in a routine, your body will just naturally adjust and know that, okay, from 8 to 4, for 20 minutes on, 10 minutes break, 20 minutes on, 10 minutes break, I will be studying, and your body by the second week of preparation should be adjusted to it. That is just from a scientific perspective, but it does work getting into that habit. And plan your topics. So in a case where you are not sure, so let's just say, okay, for the first part in biology, it was pretty simple. I understood all of those concepts. Then take the topics that you have not touched yet and start with that. Or start with what's hardest to you first. So the thing that you don't want to do the most, I advise you to start with that, because if you overcome that, so let's just say you take a week to get that through. If you overcome that, your body will naturally feel more confident into covering the other topics. So overall, in any subject, I guess you could apply this to not only sciences. Study for the 20 minutes on, 10 minutes break. Ensure that before you start, you know what topic you want to complete. If you're focusing only on one subject for the day, okay, if you want to focus and touch 3 subjects to the day, just make sure that you don't overwhelm yourself. And don't look at the time too much to the point where you feel as though you're not covering all of the information, because I guarantee you that you can and you will cover it. And even though the things that you don't get to go through in detail, once you read through that information, you understand that information, if you see a question, you will be able to apply it. So 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off. And if you designate your study time 8 to 4, 10 to 4, whichever you are more comfortable studying, whatever time zone, because I know some people study best at morning or function best in the morning, then you study. Plan all of your studies for the morning period. If you function best in the evening, plan all of your studies for the evening time. But designate the next few weeks to studying and preparing for the exam. Plan out the topics that you want to cover, the things that give you the most amount of trouble. If you know that you don't understand and you don't have a teacher to reach out to, sometimes, and this is so true, technology is with you here, where we have a lot of YouTube videos explaining different topics and going through things in detail. You just have to find the one that works best for you. Use your textbook, use past papers. As Miss said, sometimes the multiple choice questions too. I know a lot of students do have access to past papers. Go through it and just make sure, but don't focus too much on the past papers to the extent where you think, okay, I'm confident in what I'm doing here in the past papers, because if they choose a brand new set of questions, you don't want to be at a disadvantage. So plan your studies, take the hardest topics first if that works best for you. Plan out what you want to cover in a daytime or week time, and set small goals, and by the time the exam reaches, you'll be prepared. Don't worry.
Okay, understood. Thanks, Ms. Jones, so much. I want to direct a question, of course, to both of you, but starting with Ms. Nalini. A lot of students are overwhelmed when they think, oh my gosh, I have multiple choice only. So to sort of reduce that feeling of stress and being overwhelmed, can you explain to the viewing audience what is unique about approaching multiple choice questions as opposed to how they would have approached the paper two? I know from a studying perspective, you encouraged for students to practice, practice, practice. But in terms of understanding what is unique about multiple choice compared to the structured paper, could you help to bring some understanding so we could sort of calm some of the fears that both parents and students would have about this transition taking place here in 2020?
Okay, most maths questions are pretty straightforward. All you need to do is to just read them carefully and find the answer. Well, as I said, with practice, you need to practice, but with practice, then you would soon realize that you can use the process of elimination. So you can use the process of elimination, eliminating what is obviously not right. So that is something which is unique to maths past paper questions, where you can actually see by looking at the question and looking at the answers, you can see what doesn't fit in with the answer. So you have four choices. So you can start the process of eliminating three that isn't right, or maybe you might eliminate two and you may have two that are close in values. So you might think either one of them is the answer. Then you may proceed to like probably read over your question so you can further eliminate another one. So one of the advantages of the multiple choice is that the process of elimination. Another unique attribute to the multiple choice is that it's easier for the children. The answers are there, so it's easier for the children to read the question and to use like certain phrases or certain data from the question to get the answer.
Right.
Sometimes by just looking at the question, for example, if you're looking at, let's say, a linear inequality, and you have your four choices, then you would see that, okay, if it doesn't have an equal sign, then you would have empty circles. But if it has an equal sign, then you would have full shaded circles. So by looking at the question and the answer, it's easier to get a choice. So that's what's also unique to multiple choice questions in maths.
Understood. So what you're sharing with us is that the fact that there is the option, four options, that the answers are presented to you, it brings a different dynamic. That would you say that students, this is something to make students nervous, or would you say this is something that should excite students?
I would say it should be something that makes them comfortable,
Right.
right? So the first thing I would advise is that you look at the answers, right? And if you think it's something that it's easy for you to figure out, then you can use the process of elimination. Else, you would just have to use the data and work out the question by probably using the formula or by simple reasoning.
Got it. So to present the same question to Ms. Jones, Ms. Jones, when you think of what is unique about a multiple choice exams from a biology chemistry, physics perspective, not necessarily what they should do to study, but when you look at the structure of the exams, what should students understand about the exam? And even parents who are encouraging their teenagers, what should they understand about the structure of the exam, so that way they could go into it with greater confidence and not feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be prepared? What should they understand?
Okay, so one thing, and this is very unique, and this, as Miss said, should make you feel very comfortable. The answer is there. You have 60 multiple choice questions to do in an hour and a half, and bet your bottom dollar the answer is in the question. So all you have to do is just read the question, and you can use the process of elimination. This is why proper preparation is what will help you. Use the process of elimination. You could choose the right answer, but you should feel, and your mind should be at ease to know that the answer is there. Even if it's something that you heard once before, you will see the answer is right there. So I think that is something that Ms. stressed on already, that you can use the process of elimination. The answer is there. Relax. It will be fine. Trust me, it is. And it's better than having to do the paper too. Read the questions properly, because sometimes, and this is in general with multiple choice questions, one word could sometimes change an answer. So my advice to you is read the question properly, pick your answer. Sometimes your first thought, the first answer that comes to mind when you read a question is the right one. And this is 98% of the time. So read your answer, read your question properly, choose the answer. The first thing that comes to mind, note it. Go through the paper, questions 1 to 60. Same methodology. The first answer that comes to mind when you read the question, because sometimes you don't even have to read the options, you already know the answer, and you glimpse on, you see it right there. So go with whatever your first answer tells you, and then look back through the paper again when you're finished. So go through, my advice to students when I tell them to do multiple choices, usually try to go through the exam paper twice. So you read the first time around and you start choosing the answers that you already know. So you know the question, you read the question, you choose the answer that you know off the bat. There may be some questions where you don't know the answer to. You have two answers that you have in mind. If I were you, I would just make note of that, put two little ticks to the two answers that are very, very close. The second time when you're going through the paper and you have more than enough time, because as Miss was saying, most times it does not take a minute to answer a multiple choice question. You may finish it before, because again, as soon as you read the question, you'll know the answer. When you're going through it the second time around, choose the answers again, read it through, just take your time. The answer is right there, and that should bring you comfort in knowing the answers before me. They will not just put all wrong answers there just to fool you. No, that's not a thing. Ignore the fact that you may be getting A for the first 10 answers, because you may think to yourself that automatically, oh, is something probably wrong with this because all the first 10 answers is A. Not necessarily the case. Do not overthink it. Look at the option. Once that option does not change for you for the question, you're fine.
Okay, so bringing Miss, as we bring Miss Nalini back into the conversation, my final prompt in chatting with you ladies is to ask, how can students avoid errors when doing calculation? Because for all of the exam and subjects we're talking about, there is some level of calculation in many instances that have to be done. And, you know, for the structured papers, a lot of students may have taken comfort in saying, okay, I'm going to show my workings, and even if I don't get the correct answer, I'll pick up marks along the way. But here it is now, students have this multiple choice where here we're choosing A, B, C, or D, and if I choose it wrong, oh my gosh, it's just wrong. So how can students avoid errors in calculation so they could maximize and earning marks within their multiple choice papers for this CSEC 2020 exams? Anybody could share first. Open question.
Okay, so my thing is that paper, once that paper is in front of you, you can write on that paper. Write down your working, work it out step by step. Take your time, make sure you know the formula for the question, and this is why it's so important to better prepare, because if you know the formula, you could just write it down and start write down your calculation step by step. Like if we go back to primary school and you know that you want to take your time, write it down. You don't have to rush down to erase it on the paper. Write down your working and work it through step by step, line by line.
Got it. And Miss Nalini, what tips would you give to help avoid errors in calculations?
Okay, well, first of all, I would advise them when they read the problem, what you need to do is to underline the specific keywords so that they know that these are things that you need to keep in mind when they have to answer the questions or do the calculations. Another thing that I would advise is don't do the calculations in your brain. What you need to do is you need to write it out and write out the steps neatly and clearly so that when you're checking it back over, then you wouldn't be confused about how you got something or how you came across a certain answer, right? So you need to have your stuff orderly, right? So again, it comes with the practice. So if you practice it before the exam, when you're in the exam, it's going to come natural to you, right? Another thing that I would advise is always recheck your work, right? So when you practice a lot of maths problems, then you would get accustomed and the formulas will come naturally, so you won't have to bother about learning off the formulas. So it'll be easier for you to check over the work, right? So I would advise that. And one thing I will also advise is that you stay calm. I know a lot of people entering the exam room may be a little bit stressed because of the length of time that the exam was pushed back. A lot of them probably think that they have so much time that they overstudied. A lot of them probably think that, oh gosh, I just want to go just do this exam and get it over with. But I would advise that they stay calm and they carry on. So they realize that, okay, it's just me and my exam, so I need to be focused all the time, right? So you don't need to be distracted about who's walking by or the noises you hear. You just need to be focused, because if you're not focused, then it's easy to get distracted and it's easy to make mistakes, like, or forget. So I would advise that also. Another thing that I would like students to know is that, okay, it's an exam, right? So right there in that exam, it's not about scoring the highest mark. It's about doing the test at the best of your ability. And it's about passing the exam, right? So don't worry about who's going to get the highest mark, right? All you need to do is be focused and try to do your best, right? So you need to be prepared, and in order to be prepared, you need to practice and you need to be capable to handle the questions. So that is my advice.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So even as we start to wind down this conversation, I want to give opportunity for any closing tips that you all as individuals may have. So Ms. Jones, even as we close this convo, when it comes to the sciences, do you have any closing remarks or closing thoughts you would like to leave with either students or parents as we all get prepared for exams?
Okay, so my advice is, and I stress this, take your time over the next few weeks and prepare for the exam. The exam date will not change, hopefully, by this time, but take your time and prepare for it. Ensure that you cover the information to the best of your ability. If you don't understand something, again, use your textbook. If you could reach out to a teacher, reach out to a teacher. If you could use YouTube, you use YouTube. If your parents could help you, ask your parents. Take your time and prepare for it. Pace yourself day by day. Don't try to overcram your brain in the next few weeks. It will not help. Don't think about the amount of work that you have to do, especially if you're relaxing for the last few weeks. Don't think about the amount of work you have to do. Just do it, and it will becomes so much easier. It is very important for you to get sleep. I know students tend to think pulling an all-nighter will help them just get all the information done and they would finish off the entire syllabus in a week time. Sleep is important. You need at least 6 to 8 hours sleep in order to function at your best. And if you pace yourself with the information, with preparing for the information, you may think that you don't remember it. When you sleep and you relax, your body stores that information in the back of your mind. So when you go into the exam and you see the question, you see the prompts with the answers, you will be able to recall it. Do not, if you feel as though you don't remember what you studied on Monday, until you finish preparing everything that you have wanted, do not go back to that information that you studied on Monday, because you may end up in a situation where you keep going over the same thing over and over, and that's just wasting time. Cover the information thoroughly to the best of your ability the first time around. If you feel as though you look at a question, you don't know what's going on, and you studied the topic already, have no fear. It's in your brain. Your brain stores information. With proper rest, making sure that you eat and you stay hydrated. When you're finished studying and preparing all of the topics, then if you want, you can go back through that information. Don't overwork yourself. Set a time limit every day for how long you'll be studying for, when you have your lunch, whatever it is, whatever works best for you. Just don't overstress yourself. In the exam room, just take your time, relax, breathe. You will get through it for that hour and a half. Just make sure that you put everything, the best of your ability, into that paper. And once you prepare it properly and you do your best, you will be successful. That's
Okay.
my advice.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ms. Jones and Ms. Nalini. As we close down, any final words that you want to share with either teens or parents as they get ready for this amended structure for our our 2020 CSEC exams coming up this July?
Okay, so what I would like to tell the teens is don't put too much pressure on yourself if you can help it, because exams is just a month away, right? So just study as much as you can, that when the test comes, you are as ready as can be. And also, I would like to tell parents that they need to encourage their children, right? I think this whole stay home period has been stressful on both parents and children. So it's a different mental capacity going into the exam room, right? So just parents, just keep encouraging your children, just keep supporting them. Just remember it's a test, and keep on telling them positive things. And the students, I would advise them to keep telling yourself like positive things, like tell yourself, I can do this. And it's just a test, it does not define me, right? Tell yourself that you are prepared and you are capable. Tell yourself that you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be your best, right? So that would be my advice to both parents and students.
Okay, great. So, Ms. Jones, Ms. Nalini, I thank you so much for taking time to join me online to share this information with parents and students. I know for a lot of them, it's a stressful time, it's nerve-wracking, it's new, it's different, it was unexpected. And I know that you all shared some really great content here this evening, so I appreciate you taking your time to share. And, we just wish you a really good night. Yeah, so thank you so much.
All right,
yeah?
bye everyone. Enjoy your night.
Bye. So, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you, mummies, daddies, aunties, uncles, as I like to say. Thank you so much for joining, and I trust that as you went through the live stream with us, and those of you who would join us on the replay, I trust that the information was valuable. Know that just because the structure of the exams and how things are facilitated, just because it has been amended, it does not mean it is the end of the world. It does not mean it's time to panic. What it does mean is that we want to take a strategic approach both to studying and to preparing to sit the examination. So please feel free to share this information with parents or other students that you know who are going to be writing exams this July, so that the information in terms of how they should study, the type of routines they should have. We spoke about what is unique about the multiple choice paper, so that students would know how they can do things differently. And of course, our teachers here tonight spoke about how errors can be avoided. I trust this is going to be a wealth of value to you. Thank you for joining in. Of course, remember our program sponsor, Victoria Literacy Center, located in Marabella, Trinidad. And we thank VLC for making it possible to do this live stream, have this conversation, and provide valuable content tonight. So we have been discussing 2020 CSEC examination tips. I trust it has been helpful. Please, if you need any further support, be sure to contact Victoria Literacy Center. Those who are there are going to be excited to help and support. So thank you for joining. Have a great night. And until next week, we look forward to having our parents back in for yet another edition of the Schooling at Home Q&A session. Have a good night, everybody.